Hello. This is based on an idea I once had that wasn't enough to be a story of its own. The dodo is a bird synonymous with human-caused extinction. Not only was it one of the best documented such cases, but it was also memorable enough to achieve mascot status. Similar to the panda, but for the animals that weren't saved. I for one am so bummed it went extinct that I decided to make an alternate timeline where it didn't. In fact, let's try to make it as ubiquitous as possible. Before doing that, however, I would like to explain why the dodo went extinct, just so we're all on the same page. There was nothing wrong with the bird itself, as some might still believe. It was neither stupid, nor slow, nor weak in any way. Quite the contrary actually. Dodos were a species of pigeon, and as such had inherited the intelligence, agility, and navigation skills of their ancestors. They were also possibly quite hardy due to their size. Their eggs though, that was another story. On an island with limited resources and no predators, it is more evolutionary advantageous to produce fewer bigger eggs than many smaller ones. This is why flightless birds in islands tend to go extinct when predators are introduced, while those in the mainland do just fine even in the most dangerous ecosystems. It's all about recovering from losses. So the main difference dodos of this alternate timeline have from the ones in our own is the way they reproduce. Maybe this timeline's Mauritius is a much more seasonal island, causing the dodo to adopt the chicken strategy. Laying a lot of eggs in times of plenty and none in times of lean. Or maybe there's a native predator that can't hurt adult dodos but can raid their nests, forcing them to tend to their eggs and even nest communally. Something like a land crab or small snake should do it. Let's do all of those actually. Also, let's make these dodos a lot tastier than those of our timeline. Bear with me on this one. Based on the one documentary I could find about dodos, and despite what the movie The Pirates might imply, dodos didn't taste good. In fact, they tasted terrible. If they were actually tasty, humans wouldn't need to import pigs on Mauritius and would be more encouraged to farm dodos for food. Then again, Galapagos tortoises were delicious and were hunted to near extinction. But let's be optimistic here. It is a fake scenario after all. So, onto the alternate timeline. The island of Mauritius is settled by the Dutch in 1598, just like in our timeline. Also, just like in our timeline, they encounter the strange flightless birds native to the island. Of those birds, one species in particular stands out. They are big, enough so that only a few can provide plenty of food to the people. Furthermore, they show curiosity towards humans rather than fear. Eventually, specimens are captured alive and sent to Europe for study. On the way there, they are kept in small cages and are overfed, which leads to the discovery of their chicken-like method of egg laying. The islanders either learn these news or find out independently, and decide that domesticating the dodo for eggs is easier than shipping in chickens. Transitioning to farming instead of hunting them. At the same time, the intelligence, friendliness, and overall strangeness of dodos makes them popular abroad. Just like their pigeon relatives, they are imported the world over. Some kept as pets, others farmed for meat and eggs. Combining attributes of pigeons, chickens, and parrots, makes them as popular a pet as any of those. The 17th century comes and goes, and while most wild bird species from Mauritius face the threat of extinction, dodo numbers skyrocket thanks to their global distribution. Dodo breeders around the world all try to produce their own fancy dodo breeds, while farmers aim for meatier and more docile breeds they can keep with their other poultry. Of course, no matter how good their housing is, some of them manage to escape into the wilderness. This pretty much continues on in the 18th and 19th century, with dodos joining dogs, cats, and pigeons as the animals humans will bring with them in any city and town they move to. From Europe to the Americas to Australia. Though as the decades keep going on, the novelty slowly wears off. Similar to their relatives, the pigeons, in a way. By the dawn of the 20th century, dodos are just a regular domesticated animal like all others. In fact, the large feral populations have made them a nuisance that animal control deals with regularly. This leads to the 21st century, where the legacy and reputation of the dodo is completely different from the ones in our timeline. Positive and negative. On the positive side, I expect dodos to be a staple of online animal videos. Not sure if they'd be on the same level as cats, dogs and parrots, but probably on a similar level to rats, horses and goats. And then there's the negative side. Extinction made the dodos martyrs in our timeline, forever tying them with what happens to native animals when humans introduce invasive species into their habitat. In this alternate reality, however, they are one of those invasive animals that drove multiple others to extinction. In fact, I expect them to have especially devastating effects in New Zealand. Being flightless birds with a generalist lifestyle, they would compete with species like the kakapo and the kiwi directly, perhaps driving them to extinction before conservation attempts could be made. In an ironic way, they're still associated with extinction, but as its heralds instead of its victims. Just like cats, rats, and foxes. Imagine how different our view of the dodo would look to someone from that timeline. It would be like someone telling us that raccoons are a symbol of extinct animals because in their reality they were wiped out due to overhunting for their fur in the 1700s. Which is also an alternate timeline idea I had that was too little to do anything with. Actually, let's have both be true in the same timeline for absolutely no reason. Why not? So yeah, that was another alternate history scenario I made into a video. I'm planning to make more, and focus on humans for at least quite a few of them. I mean, I find things like nature and art a lot more interesting than people, but people are the ones who make history. So it only makes sense. Goodbye for now.